Taste is incredibly subjective. We all love films for a variety of different reasons. Some people clinging to nostalgia because they prefer the films they enjoyed as a child, because they bring them back to those carefree times where their lives weren't overwhelmed by adult pressures to reproduce or partake in capitalistic pursuits, using film as a comforting escape. Or maybe for you, film is pure escapism. You want to be transported into an entirely different world that gives you a break from reality, whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, or some heightened version of real life. It could be emotional catharsis you seek out. Maybe you turn to film for an emotional release of sorts, a heartbreaking drama or a deeply personal story that can help you process your own emotions in a safe way, or feel seen in your struggles in a way you rarely are in your everyday life. Maybe you're drawn to visuals, atmosphere, thought-provoking themes, or just some goofy comedy that makes you laugh. And all of these are valid reasons to love a film. But for me, movies that I hold near and dear to my heart, it all comes down to one thing, and that's relatability. That feeling of seeing yourself, your life, or your emotions reflected in a movie can create a much deeper and more personal connection to the content you consume. But what is it exactly that makes a film relatable, and does it really even matter? So I'll lead off by saying once again, I completely understand how subjective relatability is, and something somebody absolutely loves could be something that somebody else gets absolutely nothing out of. That said, there are a few forms of relatability that each of us have and will experience in film, and relatability isn't just about seeing your exact life on screen. It can be about emotions, struggles, or perspectives that resonate with us. We can relate to characters who are nothing like us on the surface, but share similar internal conflicts. And from what I can tell, the main methods used to create relatability on film are the following. This is that feeling of, oh, I've been through that situation before. And this is the most obvious form of relatability. It's when a film directly mirrors your own experiences. For example, a film like Lady Bird may resonate with people who've had a complicated mother-daughter relationship, because it captures that push and pull dynamic of love and frustration perfectly. Then there's something like The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which could connect with people who felt like they were an outsider in high school. Situational relatability often shows itself through life stages in coming-of-age films or through personal experiences like breakups or career failures. This is more that, oh, I've felt that way before, feeling a movie can give you. And even if you haven't lived through a film's exact situation, you might deeply relate to its emotions. For example, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is about memory erasing technology, which obviously isn't a real thing you or I could experience. However, each of us can relate to the pain of wanting to just forget a failed relationship. Or we have something like Inside Out, which makes people of all ages reflect on how emotions shift as you grow up, even if we don't have a little angry red guy in our heads. This type of relatability is powerful because it isn't as limited by cultural or situational barriers. Someone who's never been in a romantic relationship can still relate to Eternal Sunshine if they've ever wanted to escape some kind of painful memory before. Now this is the one I personally gravitate towards the most, and it's that feeling of, I would love to be that way, or I want to experience that. An example of something like this would be The Pursuit of Happiness, where a struggling salesman fights to create a better life for himself and his son. Despite facing hopelessness and financial hardship, his determination to succeed against all odds is inspiring to those who are working hard to improve their circumstances, no matter how difficult. And this is that feeling of, hey, that's my world. Seeing your culture, traditions, or background authentically represented on screen can be incredibly powerful for some people. For example, Everything Everywhere All at Once resonated deeply with children of immigrants through its portrayal of generational trauma, language barriers, and the immigrant experience in America. This kind of relatability is important because mainstream films have historically centered on certain perspectives while sidelining others, which can make finding films that everyone can deeply relate to a bit more difficult. When people see themselves represented accurately, it can feel like a validation of their experiences. Now, a movie doesn't have to neatly fit directly into one of these categories. Obviously, movies can have overlap, but understanding that relatability comes in many different forms can explain why certain films mean so much to some people while others get absolutely nothing out of them. I mean, there are definitely some films that are nearly universal in their relatability, like Toy Story or The Breakfast Club, but on the other side, there are some that strike a chord mostly with specific audiences, like Moonlight or Roma. And it's even more impressive when a film can find a way to make itself relatable even when you can't find a single bit of yourself in it on a surface level. But this is part of what makes film so awesome, because what's relatable to one person might be completely alien to someone else. And I think this is partially why we get so giddy when we find someone else who loves a movie or TV show just as much as we do. Because deep down we know it means more than just finding someone with similar taste. You may have found somebody who has similar experiences, aspirations, or perspectives. So now that we understand the different types of relatability in film, let's talk about how these are utilized a bit. So I want to talk about two films that I deeply relate to and talk about how this is accomplished in films. So let's start with Rocky, which is probably my favorite film of all time just simply due to how much I can relate to both Rocky himself and Sylvester Stallone's struggle at the time. Obviously I'm no underdog boxer given a 1 in a million offer to fight for the heavyweight belt, but the reason Rocky connects with people doesn't really have anything to do with boxing. It's a film about perseverance, self-worth, and proving something to yourself. Rocky himself is a symbol of perseverance. At its core, Rocky is about an underdog trying to prove something to himself. The film taps into that universal feeling of being underestimated or doubted, a situation most people can relate to at some point in their lives. Rocky isn't just fighting in the ring, he's fighting against his own self-doubt and the limitations imposed to him by everyone around him. Unlike other sport movies where winning is the ultimate goal, Rocky emphasizes the importance of going the distance and achieving something personal and meaningful. This taps into an aspiration that many people share, and that's the desire to improve and keep going even if the outcome isn't guaranteed. And not only is the message great, but Rocky's relatability is strengthened even more through his flaws as a character. He's not the perfect hero. He's insecure, struggling financially, and far from the traditional leading man, especially at the time. His vulnerability made him human, and his growth throughout the film isn't about becoming a champion, it's about finding value in himself as a person. And obviously all of this was completely thrown away in the later films, but we can pretend Rocky 3 and beyond don't exist. So next up we have The Disaster Artist, which chronicles the making of The Room, which is a film widely considered to be the best, worst movie ever made. And at first glance it might seem like a story making fun of an eccentric, delusional, and potentially vampiric filmmaker. However, The Disaster Artist taps into a much deeper and more relatable theme, the pursuit of a dream, which Tommy pursues hard despite overwhelming odds and a severe lack of talent. Tommy's passion to make a movie despite having no clear understanding of filmmaking mirrors everyone who's tried to chase a dream without knowing exactly how to achieve it. I mean, look at me. I'm just typing some shit out on Google Docs, reading it to a computer, and praying there's people out there that want to watch it. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Subscribe if you're enjoying, by the way. His devotion to his craft, even when everyone around him doubts him or mocks him, is something that's both inspirational and relatable to anyone who's ever tried to pursue something that others didn't understand. And beyond just Tommy, the film also focuses on Greg Sestero, who's drawn into Tommy's world through his own desire to succeed in Hollywood. Greg's internal struggle of sticking with Tommy even as things get more and more bizarre highlights the tension you can feel when supporting someone's dream while also facing the harsh realities of their flaws. It taps into the feeling of being caught between loyalty to a friend and your own personal ambitions. And while the film is obviously focused on being a comedy first, just simply due to the absurdity of The Room, it also highlights a very relatable truth, and that's that the pursuit of a dream is messy and often full of failures. But those failures only define us if we give up right as things get hard. The film also doesn't shy away from showing Tommy's flaws or his inability to connect with others. It presents front and center just how delusional and eccentric he is, yet it also shows his passion, his drive, and his genuine belief in his work. And in this way, The Disaster Artist humanizes Tommy, and I have no idea how, but it makes me relate to him and want him to succeed, even if his dream seems impossible for someone like him. Both Rocky and The Disaster Artist succeed in creating an emotional connection through a shared emotional journey. In Rocky, it's about struggling with self-worth and the desire to overcome obstacles, and in The Disaster Artist, it's about the pursuit of a dream and the awkward reality of chasing something without the tools to succeed. Both characters are deeply flawed, but it's those flaws and determination that allow me to deeply connect to them as a viewer. I've often considered relatability as the mark of a good film, but is that really fair? Am I limiting how I engage with my art? Or does it come down to, I like what I like? I obviously don't think films need to be relatable to be great. Some of the best films challenge viewers by showing perspectives far removed from their own, with films like A Clockwork Orange where it forces the viewer to confront unsettling ideas about free will, morality, and the nature of human behavior. It's more of a film meant to provoke thought rather than immediate relatability, which when looking at it objectively is an amazing film. But myself, someone who thrives on films I can find a bit of myself in, I don't tend to look back on this film as lovingly as many others do. And there's a ton of films like this. The Pianist, 12 Years a Slave, There Will Be Blood, all films I objectively categorize as great, but they just don't do it for me because of what I prioritize in a film. That's what makes movies stick in the old brain cavern for me, but is there something else for you? Is it relatability or something else entirely that makes you love a film? And that's really it. See you, nerds.